Hello, I'm Jyotika. Welcome back to Excelling Psychology. I'm just continuing with the video in which we are solving past paper 2, May-June 2022 paper. If at all you're confused about what we are doing in this video, please visit the previous part. I had covered up to question 3b2 in that video. Today I'm continuing from question 4. Okay, so I'm getting right into it. I'll read out the question first. In the study by 𝗣𝗦𝗬𝗖𝗔𝗟𝗟𝗢𝗬𝗓 et al., ICE test, 8 problems of validity were identified with the original version of the ICE test. 2 of these problems were that the task involved a forced choice between only 2 response options, the 2 words presented. The test included basic mental states. Explain why each of these problems affected the validity of the study. Okay, first we have to explain why the task involving a forced choice between the 2 response options affected validity. Now, as such, here we have to know our concept of validity well and know what all confounds validity. Nevertheless, this question can also be taken as a direct descriptive question. Why is that? Because when we study the 𝗣𝗦𝗬𝗖𝗛 ICE test, at that time, all these 8 problems have been clearly discussed with reasons for why they were problems. So irrespective of we have studied from some course companion or from the original study itself, we have had a discussion of the 8 problems and how they were rectified in the revised version of the ICE test. Okay, but here I'll take up this question as if it has to do with our understanding of validity. Okay, like I told you in the previous video, if the command term is explained, we need to make sure that we are reasoning out whatever answer we are giving. We don't just state answers or just name things. We reason it out. And here we can see the marks allotted to this question are 4. So it is understood that 2 marks will be allotted to what we answer for the task involved and 2 marks for the test involved. Okay, first I will deal with this first part. The task involved a forced choice between only 2 response options. Here what we can think about is, in general, what if there's a forced choice question? How does that influence validity? The good thing about a forced choice question we know is that participants have to select from one of 2 response options, so they cannot hide what is on their mind. They definitely have to give a response, so we are sure we get a response, and either one that supports a statement or opposes it, that is for sure. So nobody can take a neutral stance. Another thing we know that answering these questions makes for very valid interpretations later on, because there's a lot of objectivity involved. But as of now, we are focusing on the problem that can arise with validity. Okay, so why I've discussed this is because some students, they tend to focus on the good aspect. They just see the term validity and they're like, okay, what is good about using a forced choice question? So don't focus on the good side, read the question carefully, and what they have asked is explain why this is a problem. Problem with validity means what makes this type of a task invalid or have reduced validity. That is what they're asking. Okay, now when there is a forced choice response, obviously what a participant can do is guess. There are a number of different answers you can give to this question. As I've told you earlier, for paper 2, there are a number of different responses. So I'm just discussing one of those. I'm discussing guessing. Besides guessing, you could also discuss ceiling effect or narrow score range, which prevents discrimination between the ability of participants. I'm taking up only one, which is guessing. Okay, also how do we decide how many different points we should give? Like if we're talking about reduced validity and we know of ceiling effect, narrow score range, guessing, which of these should we discuss and how many of these? See, after all, only 2 marks are being allotted to this question. So 1 mark will go for naming the problem, we'll name it as guessing, and the 2nd mark will be for reasoning, explaining why guessing is a problem in this particular named test, 𝗣𝗦𝗬𝗖𝗛𝗍𝗍 et al. Test. So it's clear we don't need to give one more response. Like we don't need to discuss ceiling effect or anything additionally, because there are no marks to be allotted to that. So just pick up any one problem for this question, like I'm picking guessing, and explain that. That's it. Instead of giving a breadth of responses, always give a depth response. They're expecting you to cover an answer in detail rather than presenting multiple answers to a question. Okay, so now I'll focus on guessing. What happens is, if there are only two response options to a question, say there's a question and the response options are A and B, by guessing alone, what are the chances that you'll be correct? Supposing you don't know what is the answer, so just blindly you pick up, say, A. The chances that you will be correct is 0.5. Probability of a correct answer is 0.5. Exactly what is the problem with this? That as an examiner, when I sit to check your responses, whether they are right or wrong, I have no way of knowing whether you have just guessed and given an answer or you genuinely knew the answer and you gave it. So supposing your answer turns out to be correct, which there is a 0.5 probability of, that means there's a 50% chance that your answer will be correct. I will assume that you actually know the correct answer. I will assume you have the ability of giving the correct answer, whereas you don't. You have just made a guess. So my interpretation that you have knowledge or ability will be incorrect. It will be invalid. So this is how validity gets reduced in this case. Again, like I told you in the previous part, we don't just name this problem and explain it generically. We have to connect it with the particular scenario or course study presented. The study presented here is the 𝗣𝗦𝗬𝗖𝗔𝗟𝗟 et al. Test. Here, why guessing would be a problem? Because we would assume that participants know what the face is expressing. They have understood which emotion is being expressed by the face in the photograph, by the eyes in the photograph, whereas in reality they have just made a guess. Okay, so again, like always, I will show you how to write this answer. We'll write the problem is that participants could simply guess and mark the correct response with a probability of 0.5. This affects validity because it would appear that they are correctly identifying the emotion expressed by the eyes when they are actually just guessing. Okay, again, how do we get marked on this answer? Like I always show you, this part, this first sentence in which you have identified what could reduce validity, you will get 1 mark for that. And for the second part where you have linked it with the study, you will get a 2nd mark. See, I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to apply your understanding to the course study or scenario given. You know, never have this approach of just naming and naming generally everything. That is why students get C grade in psychology, because they don't connect the answers. That's the major fundamental issue. Okay, so as we are solving these papers, that is why I'm explaining to you how to think, how to write, so that you don't make these mistakes, which I see repeatedly. Okay, next we see, in the same way we have to answer why. there could be a problem of validity with the fact that the test included basic mental states. Okay, one of the problems with the original 𝗖𝗔𝗟𝗟 test, if you remember, is that it just included basic emotions and not complex ones. So basic emotions as in anger, sorrow or sadness, happiness. Okay, so participants just had to identify these type of emotions in the photographs seen. What is the problem with these? Again, you could take it as a descriptive, or if you think about it, it becomes too simple to identify these type of emotions. Okay, anger, sadness and all are emotions which are basic. Why do we say they are basic? Because firstly, they are universal, they are found in every culture, and their expressions are very prominent. So if I'm angry, or I'm sad, or I'm happy, the emotions, the facial expressions that come to me, or the body language that comes, is very visible to another person. This is not what happens in the case of complex emotions like jealousy or guilt or embarrassment. Those emotions are not so obviously seen in the face or the body language of a person. So if something is too easy to identify, the problem that arises is participants will be able to easily answer those questions, and we have the problem of construct validity. Okay, I don't want to complicate things, so I won't get into construct validity, but the problem is that what we are trying to measure is whether participants actually can distinguish between different emotional states, and then we are giving them such simple emotional states, which just means that we are not actually tapping into the ability of distinguishing emotions. We are measuring it at a very superficial level. So this is the problem we are going to discuss here in the same way as we did the previous one. First we'll discuss it in general, and then we will connect it with the study. Okay, let's start answering. We'll write the problem is that basic emotions, whatever terms they have used, I told you last time also, answer as per the question. So they have used the term basic mental states. So I would say the basic mental states are too easy to identify, by looking at someone's eyes. Okay, so I've named the problem. I have stated in general what it is. Now I will connect it with the study. Therefore, participants could state the correct answer not because they truly had the ability to distinguish between emotions, but because of the ease of answering, reducing validity. Okay, when does validity get reduced or confounded in general? When something interferes with the results, right, which should not. Here we want participants' ability of understanding and differentiating between emotions to determine how they answer on the test, but it's something else, either the ease of the items or guessing, which is causing them to answer better. Okay, here again for the first sentence in which I've named the problem, I would get 1 mark, and the second in which I've explained how this reduces validity, I would get another mark. Also here I could highlight ease of answering, because that is mainly explaining how this relates with the study. Okay, so the answer for question 4 is in front of you. Let's move ahead to the next question. This is related to the previous, so it is 4b. Explain how solving one of these problems improved the validity of the ICE test. Now this is clearly a descriptive question. Okay, because we have to answer from our knowledge of the revised ICE test. So I'll take the first one. You could take the second one as well. I'll just take the first because we have to answer any one, right? So I'll make a choice of the first one. In the first one, we have discussed the issue of guessing because there were only two options that participants were forced to choose from. Okay, and what did they do in the revised test? Do you remember? They included 4 alternatives instead of 2. So in the original test, if the choices were between happy and unhappy, angry and calm, sad and excited, or happy, whatever, they were antonyms firstly, and they were just 2 options. So we saw possibility of guessing was 0.5. That was the probability. They included 4 alternatives in the revised version. Not only did they include 4 alternatives to choose from, they also made these alternatives real distractors. That is, actually they included such terms which were difficult to differentiate between. So for example, on one item the alternatives could be anguished, amused, hesitant, and so forth. So all the adjectives were different from each other. They were not just antonyms. So it was possible to see whether participants were actually identifying the emotions or not. Okay, as of now, we just have 2 marks allotted to this answer. So we can just discuss one part of it, which is how including 4 alternatives reduced the problem of guessing. See, when we have 2 alternatives, the probability of getting an answer correct by guessing alone is 50% or 0.5. Now, of course, if we have 4 alternatives, the probability becomes 0.25 or 25%. So that remarkably reduces the chances of a person getting a correct answer just by guessing. Of course, we could add to this that not only the guessing probability was reduced, but also such alternatives were included which were confusing, and so further the chances of guessing went down because participants would not be able to just look at extremes of emotional states and decide which of the 2 is more applicable. But right now I'm just writing a simple answer because it's for 2 marks. Okay, so what we'll write here is the guessing problem that arose from the 2 forced choices was improved by including 4 rather than 2 alternatives to choose from in each item. This reduced the probability of getting the answer correct just by guessing to 0.25, improving the validity of responses. Okay, again I'll show you how this will be marked. In the first sentence we have identified, we have named which problem was worked upon, so we've just named it. It was the 2 forced choices problem that was worked upon, so we get 1 mark for this. In the second, we have linked it by to the study by stating exactly how it was done. It was done by including 4 alternatives rather than 2, so we get 1 more mark for that. Okay, with that I complete answer 4B. So this sheet is also completed. Let's move to the next one. Okay, this is a completely descriptive answer. There's nothing much to think about. This is more like a typical paper 1 question. In the study by Milgram, the sample included a range of occupations. The only thing I have to discuss about this question is, many times students feel, because in their, this is a repeated experience of mine, so I'm sharing it. In their classes, school, the teacher does not bother to go into the original paper, and she includes nothing from it while making a presentation in the class, and then students feel, what is the need to go through so much details of a study? I hope you can see here, because your marks are depending on it. You're getting 1 mark, which can take your grade from one level to the next, for knowing which occupations of participants were included in the study. That's why I also insist that you should be integrating past paper answers into your practice right from the beginning, if you see my other videos, because not only that is useful for the exam, it will also increase your awareness. It will open your eyes to actually which type of questions are asked, regardless of what advice your teacher gives you in the classroom. Okay, now in the Milgram study, if we look at the original paper, a number of occupations have been named, which participants pursued, and it was definitely a mixture sample. So they were coming from a wide range of different occupations. So there were students, there were salesmen, there were teachers, and so forth. I won't name all of them here. They've asked us for 2. What we need to do here is we need to specify exactly 2. Okay, don't exceed that. Just sometimes students get excited if they know of more. They just want to show off there that they know more. Don't do that. Just stick to 2. Okay, so 2 occupations, which one I would name as students. So I just call it students directly. And the second one I would name is teachers, and I think they were very specific. They were high school teachers. So make sure you write it specifically. If you're not sure, like you remember teachers but you can't recall which teachers, you could include another occupation. Okay, coming to the next question. Now these questions have to be answered very carefully. The major mistake students make in these type of questions is they just answer the describe part, and what they ignore is that examples have also been asked for. Okay, firstly, in these type of questions, read carefully. Sometimes they could ask you to distinguish rather than describe. So they might ask you to present the contrast between open and closed questions. As of now, they haven't done that. As of now, they've asked us to describe. So when they've just asked us to describe and not distinguish, we can take a very simple approach. What we can do is serially answer the question. So we'll pick up open question first. Our format will be open question. We'll give its definition. Okay, and we'll give an example. Okay, and because they have allotted 6 marks for this answer, what I'll suggest is that we can present some feature of an open question. Okay, so then how the marking in our minds becomes easy, and also for the examiner, they just allot 1 mark. So we get 3 marks for the open question part. Next, we'll discuss closed question. And we'll follow the same format. We'll give a definition, we'll give an example, and we'll give one feature. So we don't have to directly contrast them. This is not a distinguish or differentiate question. So we just simply follow this format and answer. Okay, coming to which type of examples we need to give. Do the examples have to be from the course studies? Not necessary. They could be your own examples or they could be from course studies. There's no compulsion as such. And even the points, what feature you have to include and all is your choice, whatever you know well. Okay, let's see this pretty straightforward answer. Like I told you, the only thing is not to overlook examples, not to present only definitions or a very again a very generic answer. Make it specific by giving examples. Okay, also, before I begin, do not confuse between open and closed questions. So in your mind, be very clear on the difference before you begin to answer. I'm starting with the answer. Open questions are those which allow respondents to answer, we could say elaborately, at length, in detail, whatever wording you like. They typically begin with how, why, what, etc. Okay, example, we'll take for example, I'll give a generic example right now. A researcher might ask respondents on an interview about their awareness of environmental safety. Why do you think it is important to maintain a clean environment? Open questions are useful when a researcher is exploring a new research problem. Okay, because then the researcher needs details as the problem is unknown, so he needs as many details of the problem as possible. Any other feature that you've learned of it, you could include. Then I'll take a new paragraph. Closed questions are those which allow participants to answer in a very limited manner. They typically begin with are, do, which, etc. For example, a researcher might ask respondents For the environmental safety study, are you aware of the importance of maintaining a clean environment? Participants can answer, or respondents can answer as either yes or no. Closed questions are useful. When a researcher wants to quickly collect answers from a large number of participants. Okay, so that is for this answer. Again, it is very simple. We just have to make sure we cover everything. We should not miss out on anything. I'll stop this part of the video here. Next part, we will continue with the next question, which is question 7, and it has to do with data analysis. See you then. Thank you for watching.